Blood and screams erupted as human warships blasted the Tarkalian homeworld, glassing the alien cities in retaliation for their fatal mistake of abducting a human girl. In a dimly lit tavern on a remote space station, two Tarkalian traders huddled over their drinks, scales shimmering in the low light. The younger one, Zarnok, leaned in, whispering, "I heard the humans are on the warpath again. They say a Tarkalian raiding party kidnapped a human girl from a frontier colony." Orin's eyes bulged. Fools, don't they know the humans will stop at nothing to protect their own? Zarnok nodded, voice trembling. "The girl's father, Kyle Bryant, is a high-ranking officer in the human military. They say he's leading the retaliation himself." Orin gulped his drink, the liquid searing his throat. "This won't end well for us, Zarnok. The humans are like no other species we've encountered. They're fiercely protective of their families and have a concept they call justice that drives them to extremes." Zarnok tilted his head, curious. "What do you mean? What makes the humans so different?" Orin sighed heavily, recalling the stories from his long years of travel. "Let me tell you about the last time someone crossed the humans. It all started with a simple trade dispute." Reports soon emerged of human fleets amassing near Tarkalian space, preparing to burn their civilization for the crime of touching one of their children. The Tarkalians scrambled to mount a defense, knowing if they failed, their species would be erased from the cosmos by the humans' wrath. Zarnok's mouth dropped. What did the Zorgans do? I bet they came clean right away. Orin let out a bark of laughter. They tried at first to keep up the charade, threatened to go to the Galactic Trade Commission, call in favors from their allies, but Kovac had them dead to rights. He transmitted the evidence to every major network. Soon the whole galaxy knew of the Zorgans' deceit. Orin took another long pull from his drink, then wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. The Zorgans' reputation was in tatters. No one would trade with them. Their economy was on the brink of collapse. That's when Kovac made his move. "What did he do?" Zarnok asked breathlessly. He offered them a deal. The humans would keep trading with the Zorgans, but on much more favorable terms, and the Zorgans would submit to regular inspections to ensure they were living up to their end of the bargain. Zarnok whistled low. That's some shrewd negotiating. Bet the Zorgans were furious, though. They were at first. Felt like the humans had them over a barrel, but in time they came to see the wisdom of it. The new deal, while not as lucrative as their previous scheming, was still profitable, and more importantly, it was sustainable. The Zorgans learned that you can't cheat an honest man, especially not a human. Zarnok shook his head in amazement. Incredible. So the humans didn't even have to fire a shot, and they still brought the Zorgans to heel. Orin nodded sagely. That's the thing about humans, they're not just fierce warriors. They're cunning diplomats and shrewd businessmen. Cross them at your peril. Zarnok leaned back in his seat, mind reeling from the tale. And now the Tarkalians have gone and kidnapped one of their children. Stars above, what will the humans do to them? Orin's expression darkened. Nothing good, Zarnok, nothing good. The Tarkalians think they can hide behind. Zarnok leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowed as he processed Orin's tale. I'm guessing the Zorgans didn't choose wisely. Orin shook his head, taking another swig of his drink. No, they sure didn't. In their arrogance, they thought they could intimidate the humans into keeping quiet. They even tried to assassinate Kovac, if you can believe that. Zarnok's eyes widened. They went after Kovac directly. That's a bold move. A stupid move, Orin corrected. The humans were prepared for that too. They had their own security forces in place, and the assassins were captured alive. Orin's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, and he leaned in closer. And here's the kicker. The humans used those assassins to send a message right back to the Zorgans. They returned them, but not before subjecting them to a human ritual called tarring and feathering. Zarnok tilted his head, unfamiliar with the phrase. What's that? Orin chuckled. The assassins were covered in a sticky black substance, and then coated in the feathers of an earth bird called a chicken. They looked absolutely ridiculous when the humans sent them back. Zarnok couldn't help but laugh at the mental image. I bet the Zorgons didn't take that well. They were furious, Orin said, grinning. But they also realized they had severely underestimated the humans. Kovac and his team released all the evidence of the Zorgons' wrongdoing to the galactic media, and the backlash was swift and severe. The Zorgons lost contracts and allies left and right. Their reputation was in absolute tatters. Orin leaned back, crossing his arms. In the end, they had no choice but to come to the negotiating table and accept the humans' terms. They learned the hard way, not to cross a species like humanity. Zarnok shook his head in amazement. Incredible! The humans outmaneuvered the Zorgons at every turn, and now the Tarkalians have gone and kidnapped one of their children. Zarnok nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of Orin's words. So the humans didn't just settle for getting a fair deal for themselves. They used their influence to make sure no other species would fall victim to the same kind of deception. Orin leaned back in his chair, a glimmer of admiration in his eyes. Exactly, the humans have a saying, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. They took that to heart and made sure the galactic community as a whole benefited from their actions. Zarnok's brow furrowed as he considered the implications. But didn't that ruffle some feathers? I can't imagine every species was thrilled about having to adhere to new regulations. Orin chuckled. Oh, there was definitely some resistance at first. Some of the more opportunistic traders felt like the humans were infringing on their right to do business however they pleased. But the humans were relentless in their advocacy. They brought in experts to testify about the long-term economic benefits of fair trade, and they weren't afraid to name and shame those who tried to block the reforms. Zarnok shook his head in amazement. I had no idea they were so tenacious. It's no wonder they've risen to such prominence in such a short time. Orin nodded sagely. And that tenacity is exactly what has the Tarkalians quaking in their boots right now. They thought they could get away with snatching a human child, but they've unleashed a force they can't possibly comprehend. The humans won't rest until they have the girl back and the Tarkalians have answered for their crimes. Zarnok's eyes widened as a sudden realization hit him. Wait a minute. If the humans are willing to go to such lengths for a trade dispute, what do you think they'll do to the Tarkalians for kidnapping one of their own? Orin's expression darkened, his voice dropping to a grave whisper. I shudder to think of it, Zarnok. The humans have a saying, there's no fury like a parent scorned. And from what I've heard about this Kyle Bryant... Zarnok's face pales as he listens, the horror of the humans' retaliation sinking in. An entire species, billions of lives, all for one child. I can't even fathom it. Orin nods grimly. That's the thing about humans. Their bonds of family and clan run deep. An attack on one is an attack on all, and they respond with a fury that's both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Zarnok leans forward, his voice trembling. But to wipe out entire planets? That's not justice, that's genocide. How can they justify that? Orin sighs heavily. In their eyes it is justice. The Tarkalians took one of theirs and in doing so forfeited their right to exist. The humans believe in proportional response, an eye for an eye, a life for a life, or in this case a species for a child. Zarnok shakes his head, trying to wrap his mind around the scale of the destruction. I've heard stories of their advanced weapons, but I never imagined they could be capable of this. Igniting atmospheres, turning planets to ash. It's like something out of a nightmare. Orin takes a long swig of his drink, his hand shaking slightly. It's a nightmare that's all too real, and one that the galaxy won't soon forget. The humans have sent a message, loud and clear. Cross them at your own peril. Zarnok sits back, his mind reeling. What do you think will happen now? Will the other species stand up to the humans, try to hold them accountable? Orin lets out a bitter laugh. Stand up to them? After what they did to the Tarkalians, not a chance. The humans have shown their true strength, and no one will dare challenge them now. It's a new era in galactic history, one where humanity reigns supreme, and the rest of us can only hope to stay in their good graces. Zarnok drains the last of his drink, suddenly feeling very small and vulnerable. And to think all of this because of one little girl. It's hard to believe that a single human child could be the catalyst for such destruction. Orin leans in, his voice low and intense. That's the power of humanity, Zarnok. They may be few in number compared to some species, but their influence is vast, and now, with the Tarkalians as an example, no one will ever underestimate them again. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.